Wealth. Power. Influence. Very few people in history have held all three at the same time. John Pierpont Morgan did. At the height of his power, he didn't just finance America's biggest companies. He decided which ones lived and which ones disappeared. With a single meeting, a signature, or quiet agreement behind closed doors, he could stabilize the U.S. economy or let it collapse. Entire industries waited for his approval. Presidents depended on his judgment. Markets moved when he spoke. Some called him a savior. Others called him a threat to democracy. But no one denied this truth. For a brief moment in history, the financial fate of the United States rested in the hands of one man. This is the story of J.P. Morgan. John Pierpont Morgan was born in 1837 in Connecticut into a world of privilege and pressure. His father, Junius Spencer Morgan, was already a powerful banker with deep connections in Europe. From the beginning, John's future was decided for him. He was expected to inherit not just wealth, but responsibility. Yet his childhood was far from easy. Morgan was a sickly child. He suffered from constant illness, seizures, migraines, lung infections, and recurring fevers. While other boys played outside, John spent long hours indoors, reading, studying, and learning discipline through isolation. At one point, his health deteriorated so badly that his father sent him alone to the Azores, a remote island in the Atlantic Ocean, believing the climate might save his life. John lived there for nearly a year, separated from family, forced to rely on himself. That isolation shaped him. By the time he returned, Morgan was hardened, serious, and emotionally guarded, traits that would later define his reputation. He received elite education across Boston, Switzerland, and Germany, mastering languages, finance, and European banking culture. By 19, he was ready to enter the financial world. Through his father's connections, Morgan began work on Wall Street, acting as an American agent for a London banking firm. His job was simple but powerful: observe America, report its risks, and evaluate opportunities for European capital. But even early on, Morgan showed dangerous confidence. In 1859, he used company funds to buy an entire shipment of Brazilian coffee without a buyer. The gamble worked, and he made a profit, but senior bankers were furious. To them, this wasn't brilliance, it was recklessness. Morgan's father worried his son lacked restraint. So, in 1861, at just 24 years old, Morgan broke away to form his own firm. That same year, he married Amelia Sturgis, the love of his life, for a short time. Morgan was genuinely happy. Then tragedy struck. Amelia fell ill with tuberculosis and died only for months after their wedding. Morgan never recovered emotionally. He buried himself in work, shutting down the last vulnerable part of himself. As America descended into civil war, Morgan avoided combat by paying for a substitute. Instead, he found opportunity. He financed weapons deals. One infamous transaction involved purchasing outdated rifles cheaply, refurbishing them, and selling them back to the government at massive profit. The public was outraged. Morgan didn't care. War taught him a lesson that would guide his entire career. Chaos creates leverage. In 1871, Morgan partnered with Anthony Drexel to form Drexel, Morgan & Co., the foundation of what would become J.P. Morgan & Co. At first, Morgan acted as a dealmaker, connecting investors and industrialists. But as his fortune grew, so did his ambition. He wasn't satisfied with commissions. He wanted control. Morgan found his battlefield in railroads, the backbone of America's economy. Unlike oil or steel, railroads were fragmented, competitive, and inefficient. Morgan saw consolidation as power. He began buying failing railroads, reorganizing management, merging competitors, and eliminating price wars. The strategy became known as Morganization. Under his leadership, chaos became structure, competition became monopoly, risk became order. By the late 1800s, Morgan controlled nearly a third of America's railroads. At a time when railroads dominated the stock market, his influence spread beyond transportation. He helped form General Electric by merging Edison's companies. He shaped AT&T, and in 1901, he orchestrated the purchase of Carnegie Steel, creating U.S. Steel, the world's first billion-dollar corporation. At that moment, Morgan controlled steel, railroads, electricity, and finance, but power attracts resistance. President Theodore Roosevelt targeted Morgan's monopolies under antitrust law. Their relationship was hostile. Morgan viewed Roosevelt as reckless. Roosevelt viewed Morgan as dangerous. Still, When crisis came, ideology disappeared. In 1895, America faced financial collapse. Gold reserves were nearly exhausted. Confidence in the dollar was breaking. There was no central bank. The government turned to Morgan. He assembled a private syndicate, raised gold from Europe, and stabilized the economy, effectively rescuing the U.S. government itself. Again in 1907, when banks failed and panic spread, Morgan locked the nation's top financiers in his library and forced cooperation. Once again, the system survived, but the cost was clear. America had become dependent on one man. That realization led directly to the creation of the Federal Reserve. Morgan would not live to see it. He died in 1913 in Rome, as the world quietly transitioned away from individual financial kings. Yet his legacy remains. Morgan Chase now controls trillions in assets, a direct descendant of Morgan's empire. John Pierpont Morgan didn't just build companies. He built the architecture of modern finance, and whether praised or feared, his shadow still stretches across the global economy.